It's time for Pain-Free Living with Dr. Mitchell Yass and the Yass Method for Pain-Free Movement on 1010XL. Here's Matt Hayes.
All right, good Sunday morning, Jacksonville. It's the Pain-Free Living Hour with Dr. Mitchell Yass. I'm Matt Hayes. He's Dr. Yass. He's going to give you the tools to live a pain-free life. There are 3 ways to get involved. Call us. Talk to Dr. Yass at 904-641-1010. Text your question to Dr. Yass to the text line brought to you by our good friends at Lifetime Enclosures, 904-641-1010. Or you can watch us on the live stream on 1010XL YouTube channel. That is up and rolling. You can even ask questions there, believe it or not. All right, over the weeks, we've addressed how the Yass Method eliminates pain in your back, your neck, hips, shoulders, knees, and feet. We've talked about how the Yass Method eliminates sciatica and migraines. Today, we're going to talk about joint dysfunction destruction. What is joint dysfunction, you ask? It's the most common diagnosis for people with gluteal region pain. In other words, pain in your ass. But, and here's the key, it's a generic misdiagnosis that leads to treatments that are unnecessary and unending. And if we've learned anything over these last 3 months with Dr. Yass, what you've been told isn't exactly what's real. Good Sunday morning to you, Dr. Yass. Let's get into joint dysfunction destruction.
Good morning, Matt. Happy Sunday morning to everybody listening and watching. We will be getting into the full description is sacroiliac, SI joint dysfunction, and I am calling this topic SI joint dysfunction destruction because I need once and for all to get people to understand exactly what the SI joint is and how it works so that they could determine when they get that diagnosis whether it's valid or not. And I'm basically telling you it's not a valid diagnosis at all. So we're going to get into that in the second segment. But the first segment, we're going to reverse it a little bit. We're going to have a testimonial come on. And this is a guy named Steve. And the reason that I'm having him on the show is because when he came to me, he had such an extreme level of history of pain. And this is over years of time. And I want people to really recognize, I think that this will resonate with a lot of people in terms of how much wasted effort, time, energy, money is put towards treating pain when the reason for it is they just don't have the right diagnosis. So I just wanted Steve to come on and really just talk about his past, and then real briefly, he only came to the session to the facility one time. And I think he'll describe that his results were quite remarkable. He got more that one time than he got in the multiple years of time he got all these other treatments. So let me just introduce Steve and let him take it from here, and let's hear what, about his life and his story. So.
All right, Steve, you're a retired law enforcement officer.
Correct.
And what Steve's going to tell you is rather interesting, so listen closely. Steve, good morning.
Good morning. How you doing?
Doing great.
Yeah, my name's Steve. I'm a retired law enforcement officer. My story, I guess, would start in 2005 when I suffered a second neck injury on the job. At that time, I ended up having to go on light duty at work and going through workers' comp. I had tried for a long time to get some help as far as to address the issues that I was having. The only thing that they really seemed like they wanted to do was, here, take this pill.
Well, doesn't that sound familiar, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. I went through physical therapy, all kinds of different types of treatments, different modalities and whatnot over the years, and nothing ever seemed to fix or address the main issue or the problem. So I continued to deal with it, suffer with the pain. It kept getting worse. I think it started affecting the nerves as well in my neck, because I would get, the tingling and the numbness down in my arms and my hands. In 2011, 2012, I had bilateral carpal and cubital tunnel surgery on both wrists and both elbows to release it. which helped. I was probably in my late 30s at the time that I had the surgery done. However, unfortunately, when I went in for the surgery and spoke to the physician, he didn't inform me that this procedure only lasts 5 to 10 years, number one, and number two, it can only be done one time in your lifetime. So had I known that ahead of time, obviously I would have chose to wait because it wasn't super bad. I would have waited till probably now to have had that surgery because, like I said, it did help for a while, but eventually, this happened 2011, 2012, so we're over the 10-year mark, and I can tell the numbness and the tingling is starting to come back even more so. So it did help, but it was just a temporary fix, obviously. So from there, I retired in 2019 from JSO, and about 2 months before I retired, I'd gotten on an exercise kick, dropped 92 pounds, was exercising on a regular basis, running 3 to 5 miles a day, 5 days a week at that time. And then 2 months before I retired, I ended up with a bad case of plantar fasciitis in my left foot. So I ended up going to the podiatrist, and he had me have an MRI on both my foot and my ankle, and the results showed that I had some strained tendons and ligaments in my ankle.
Steve, I'm sorry, Steve. Let me just hold off for a second right there. Beyond the pain in your foot you were also having pain somewhere else, correct? At the same exact time?
Correct. I was having hip pain.
Hip region pain. Now, the fact that he had hip region pain and foot pain at the same time, how could there not be an association between the two? How is that possible? It has to be that they're connected. But because his primary pain was in his foot, he went to the podiatrist. He got an MRI, it found some structural abnormalities, and therefore that's where all his treatment followed. But if you had a Yass method evaluation that actually looks at all symptoms at the same time, I would have been able to say that the hip region pain was a strained, which muscle, Matt?
The gluteus
medius. And as a result, it changed his weight bearing from the middle of his foot to the inside, which then stresses the arch and ultimately leads to a stretching of the plantar fascia. So where the medical system's attitude is, if you have pain at the foot, I am going to do diagnostic testing at the foot, the Yass method sees the body as a whole and tries to establish, and what it's shown is in more than 99% of cases, the cause of pain is not where you're experiencing it. So I would have treated his hip, which would have ended the plantar fascia. So I just wanted to bring that up, that depending on who you go to will determine the diagnosis you get.
Right, and now hear the rest of Steve's story.
Go ahead.
Okay. So after the MRI was done, it showed that I had some strained ligaments and tendons in the ankle. It showed that I had the plantar fasciitis issue as well, but it also showed that I had some significant arthritis in my big toe as well. So through the podiatrist office visits, he started giving me injections into my foot to try to alleviate the pain. And I've been going for probably about 2.5, 3 years now. And over that time frame, it has gotten somewhat better, but I'm still having some issues. Whenever I'm just walking, I'll end up with pain after I've walked for considerable distances and whatnot. I still have some of the same issues as far as the foot pain goes. And it also obviously has a direct effect with my hips as well. I mean, I have arthritis in both hips, but it just so happens the left side, which is the same side that I have the plantar fasciitis, is worse. It's a lot worse. And I can tell by the pain level that's associated with it as well that it's a lot worse there.
So if we can, just going back to the neck pain, beyond the neck pain, you ended up then having further shoulder pain, and the whole upper back and torso began to have substantially more symptoms, which affected your quality of life, right?
Correct. I have a mild scoliosis as well, and so my posture has never been good. And the last part of my career, I was sitting at the desk typing the majority of the time, and so in doing that, obviously my posture was horrible, and it just continued to get worse. And if you see me standing up or sitting down or whatever, my shoulders are always hunched forward, My neck is always forward. The head tends to kind of automatically, whenever I sit, I have to consciously think about, okay, put your shoulders down, relax your shoulders, lift your head up, try to get your spine in alignment, whether you're sitting, standing, whatever you're doing. After, that's when I decided. I've heard your show many a times, and I also have friends that I've spoken to, and one of my friends specifically recommended, to go to you. She'd sent several of her clients to you as well in the past, and she said that everybody that's come to you has had very positive results. I asked her the other day, I said, well, has anybody ever come back and give you a negative review of what he provided for them? And she said, no, absolutely not. Everything's been completely positive. So obviously that was encouraging. But just after my first visit with you, when I went in and you saw me walk through the door and my posture, I mean, you looked at me like and started shaking your head like, this is freaking ridiculous. I mean, I could tell that, when I saw you and you saw my posture and whatnot, I could tell you were pissed off, that I've been going through this for so long. It's definitely had an effect on my life. Currently, my wife and I are separated after 23 years of marriage. And I attribute a lot of that to the fact that basically after all this happened, I kind of lost my identity as far as who I was as a person. When I retired, I was looking forward to spending time with my wife, going traveling, having a good time, that sort of thing. And what ended up happening is once I lost my ability to exercise, I tried, biking. I've tried the elliptical, those other exercises. Number one, they didn't give me the cardio level that I was looking for. And I also found when I was doing that it actually, those exercises, believe it or not, actually hurt my hip worse than running did, which is kind of strange. But
well, you weren't doing isolated strengthening. You were doing activities. And if muscles don't have enough strength for the activities, they'll strain and elicit pain. So that's why not all exercise is appropriate. It has to be the right type of exercise. So
I want to stop here real quick and explain this. This is exactly what we talk about week after week. This is the rabbit hole you fall down. It starts with your pain. It starts affecting you. Then it affects others in your family. Then it completely controls your life.
Right.
And now here we are with Steve. This has clearly affected others in his family. It's controlling his life. And now you finally go to Dr. Yass, and then what?
Well, I went into him. He basically put me on the table, gave me an evaluation, did a little bit of a neck massage, checking, palpating my neck area to try to determine where the issues were. Spent about 5 to 10 minutes doing that, and then after that, he had me immediately jump up and start with different exercises to do. At that point, though, after he did the massaging technique, he had me stand up and take a picture of me from the side, and he had taken a picture of me when I had first come in without him doing anything, and just the difference between the first photo that he took and then the second one after doing one or two exercises, I had noticed quite a difference in my posture at that time. And then as we proceeded to continue to go through the program, and he had me do probably 4 or 5 other exercises on top of the 2 that I had just done. After those exercises were completed, he had me stand up, same position, and take another photograph. And it was unbelievable, the difference in my posture. My head was clearly a good 3 to 4 inches forward in my first photograph. And then when I was done and he took the photograph, I was completely straight. My head was completely over my entire spine. My ears were lined up with my shoulders, whereas before my ears were probably a good 4 to 5 inches forward from my shoulders. And I also noticed that my shoulders were actually back, and I wasn't having to consciously think about, hey, okay, you need to relax your shoulders, hold your shoulders back, pull your head back, tilt your chin, line everything up. It kind of naturally did it on its own after I completed the exercises just for the first time.
So people understand. You want to know why I'm angry? You want to know why I'm angry? Because this guy had to suffer for almost a decade and a half, and all I had to do was spend an hour with him, do the appropriate exercise, understand the mechanism by which he had his improper posture and pain, and begin the process of correcting it. in an hour. And then I just gave him some videos to allow him to do the exercises on his own. And it's been, I think, about a week now. He's in studio now. And if you look at the guy, he's held most of everything I was able to correct in one session just by doing the exercises a couple of times more on his own. So we're going to get to the point where he has control. He won't have altered posture. He won't have pain. He'll have his life back, and it will transform his sense of his identity, his ego. He'll feel good about
Who
himself.
he is, yes.
Who he is as a person.
And that was the biggest thing, I believe my wife could tell that, I had lost my confidence. All I was doing was basically sitting around the house, playing and training with the dog, that sort of thing.
So sad.
Just sucks, God.
And I lost my motivation. But after she said that she wanted to separate, I guess the light bulb went off in my head. And unfortunately, it took that for me to realize what was going on. And, I realized that I was in a funk. I needed to snap out of it. So I decided that I was going to make the 100% effort to get my life back on track and get myself back in the game of life and start doing things to make myself feel better. And, my goal is I'd like to run again because I really enjoyed it, but I might not ever get back to that stage because of, I'm not getting any younger. I'm 54 years old now. So, if I'm able to, like you told me that you would eventually be able to get me back to running. And so that gives me a lot of hope that, if I'm able to get back to doing that, I'll be able to get myself back in order. We were doing, I also started doing, my wife and I used to do yoga together for a couple years, and she had dropped 100 pounds. When I lost my 92 pounds, we were exercising together and going to yoga together, having a good time. And she had a very bad car accident on 95, which led to her third major back surgery. And she's got rods, screws, cages, and all that in her lower back, and she's been suffering with pain for a long time. It's horrible to just have to see her go through what she's been through. And there's a lot more that she's been through that I'm not going to go into right now. But I mean, the strength of this woman is just unbelievable.
Well, I can tell you this: my prayer is that she's going to see a transformation of you.
I hope so.
And then think, well, maybe I could do that.
Exactly. If he could do it, so can I.
Yeah,
and that's what I'm hoping for.
I would love for her to get an opportunity to come and see you. She's been having to go every few months now. Even after her last back surgery, she's been having to go several times over the past 6 months or so. She's probably had 5 or 6 epidurals on her lower back because she still has a significant amount of pain. And then I think the last epidural she ended up having to get one in her neck because it starting to affect her neck as well. And I think based on my experience with you and what you were able to do for me, even though she's got those challenges with the screws, rods, cages, and all that in her back, maybe if has an opportunity to get with you and you're able to work with her, you would be able to help strengthen the areas that she needs strengthened. That would hopefully allow her to get some relief without having to go for all these epidurals and shots and all that stuff. Because, in my mind, all that is just a temporary fix. It's not going to fix the problem.
Right. So
put a Band-Aid on it.
We need to go to break. When we come back, I want you to address that. I want you to address how the idea of the pain she has in her back and how simple it would be for you to eliminate that pain. Eliminate that pain. All right, we need to take a break. When we come back, we'll continue with joint dysfunction destruction with the Yass method. It's the Pain-Free Living Hour with Dr. Mitchell Yass on 1010XL. All right, we're back in the Pain-Free Living Hour with Dr. Mitchell Yass. You can get involved, 904-641-1010. If you have a question for Doc, you can also text your question to the text line brought to you by our good friends at Lifetime Enclosures. That's also 904-641-1010. If you want to set an appointment with Dr. Yass, give him a call, 904-906-YASS. That's 904-906-YASS. Or you can go online, livewithoutpains.com. Set up an appointment. It could be in his office. It could be by Zoom. He takes care of everything. All right, Mitchell, before we get into our next guest, Kelly, I want you to circle back and talk to Lori, Steve's wife, and explain to her how you could help her as far as with her back.
So this is a really important thing that people understand, because many people, once they get surgery and their pain is still there, think that's the end of the line. That was the cause. This is what they've been told. It was addressed, and they still have pain. So the people who do the providing of the service say, well, we don't know what to tell you. I am telling you that the highest probability is that Lori's pain is muscular. It was muscular prior to the surgery. It's still muscular. And so I don't care what's been done structurally. I don't care if pins have been put in. I don't care, stabilize the pin, whatever they've done. If the cause, the tissue in distress, is muscle due to an inability to create enough force output for the activity she's performing, that never changed. And in fact, the surgery has probably led to more disuse because of the fact that post-surgical symptoms may have increased her inability to function. That might be why her pain is intensifying.
Less range of motion.
Less range of motion, less ability to weight bear.
Right.
Because you stopped because it was painful to weight bear, right?
Absolutely.
So the cause could still be muscular. And I'm telling you now, I have treated thousands of people post-failed surgery, and they've gone on to be pain-free and fully functional.
All right. Let's bring Kelly in now, and she's going to explain her situation to you as well. Mitchell, explain how Kelly got to you and how you've moved on with her now.
Sure. So, Kelly, I wanted these two people on because I want people to understand that pain is not just its own entity. It affects people's functionality, their identity, their ability to be with others. It destroys lives. It is probably the worst thing that can happen to somebody. And so Kelly is another person who over multiple years had pain in her knees and could not get an answer. And she tried similar stuff, PRP and all this, the plasma stuff and all this other stuff, and she was going nowhere fast. And then if I remember correctly, I think she said she was on her way back from church, and her husband heard the radio show. And I believe she said her husband said, this is the guy who's going to fix you.
Divine intervention.
Let's
bring
baby.
Kelly in. Kelly, good morning.
Good morning. How are y'all?
We're doing
Hey,
great.
Kelly.
Good.
So, Kelly.
Yes, that was exactly how that happened. We were on our way to church, and Dr. Yass was talking about pain relief, and I was in a lot of pain, and I thought, I've done everything else, and my husband said, you should give him a call and see what he can do.
So, Kelly, just tell everybody how long you've had your pain and the kind of stuff that's been happening since.
I started back about 4 years ago. I had some pain in my right knee, and then it progressed over to my left knee, and I went to my GP, and he did an x-ray and just coldly confirmed that you have bone on bone, and here's some Celebrex. And we'll see you back in a month. So I took it, and I came back in a month, and there was no improvement. So I decided I would lose some weight. So I lost some weight, and it did get better, but I started walking. And walking was fine at first. But then walking got really bad, and my feet started to hurt, and my knees, it just radiated up my legs. So I decided I would go to an orthopedist. And I'd already had a bad experience in an orthopedist, but I thought, well, he's a doctor. He'll know what to do. So I went to the orthopedist, and he took an x-ray. He never manipulated my knee, never put his hands on it. And at this point, it was my left knee that was bothering me the most. And I was limping. So he put his hands, he didn't touch me at all, and proclaimed that according to my x-ray and an MRI that I had done through my chiropractor, he confirmed that I had bone on bone and some meniscus wear and a bone spur, and that I would not be able to do anything but have my knee totally replaced. So I had PRP done. I had a cortisone shot, and he would always tell me, this could work, this could not work. He would never give me an answer.
This is a doctor.
So,
a doctor telling you this could
doctor.
work, this may not work.
Right. And and it didn't. I would have hope, but he told me I should come in every week to get a shot. Well, those shots are $500, and they're not covered by insurance. So I had 2 of them and didn't get any relief. In fact, the pain was radiating up and down my leg at this point. So I quit going. And when I heard Dr. Yass, I really was at my wit's end. So I have to praise the Lord that he allowed me to hear that message that morning.
So when you heard the message, Kelly, what did you do? And when you got to Dr. Yass's office, how did that go?
Well, I got online immediately after church, made an appointment. And when I got there, to be honest, I really didn't. I had heard some of what he said on the radio, but we were going into church, so I didn't get to hear all of it. But I knew that it could be a muscular deficit, which I can fix that. I can work on that. So Dr. Yass did some massage to begin with, and then he showed me some exercises. I'm only probably 6 sessions in, and I am finally sleeping at night and not tossing and turning, and just it's I can't even put into words how amazing it is. So I'm not totally pain-free, but I'm about 80% there at this point.
Kelly, you're not like a bodybuilder or a weightlifter or in like elite triathlete training, right? You're just a normal. No. Yeah, right?
Right. Yes, if you saw me, I am, and that's another thing, because of my weight, I believed that I couldn't be helped. I didn't think there was anything that would be done, anything immediately anyway. I thought this is a weight loss thing, which I still do need to get the weight off. But when you feel bad and you can't move around, there's really not a lot of hope in that. So
absolutely.
So I just want to go through a couple of things. First off, she was diagnosed as being bone on bone. I talk about this all the time, and we even did a special show on it. If you're bone on bone, there has to be a major loss of range of motion, and at that end range, it should feel like a bone's hitting another bone, stopping range. I checked the range of motion. It was 100% full.
All right, before you go further, say it in words people understand. Range of motion, just say, if it's bone on bone, your leg is not moving.
Fully. Yes, you can't bend your knee fully.
You can't bend your knee.
It's
Think
absolute.
About that.
And she had full range of motion. Also, if you're bone on bone, the pain should be at the side of the knee where you see the connection of the 2 bones that they're describing.
Right.
That's not where her pain was. It was actually in the muscle that sits to the side of her knee called the hamstring. And, of course, going back, as we always talk about, the knee and its ability to support you is based on hip strength. Well, guess what? Kelly's glute med was weak. So she wasn't able to weight bear, and she was shifting her weight to the inside of the knee. That strained the hamstring. So all I did was massage out her hip muscle and the inner knee muscle. I stretched her, and she stood up. She's been in the office now about 15 minutes. She stood up, and what happened, Kelly, when you stood up?
Well, when I stood up, I had a very emotional response. I started crying because when you've been in pain for so long and you think you have no other recourse to or anything else to go back on, it's an emotional moment, because I walked and I didn't limp. I've been limping for it's been over a year now.
Right. So. And so what I said to you was, I understand this because I've seen this thousands of times. What just happened to you was an immediate recognition that the last few years where you believed the ability to resolve your problem was hopeless. In one swift swoop, in 15 minutes, I just proved to you that it isn't hopeless, and in fact, it's going to happen. And that was why the emotion came out. Wouldn't you agree that was what happened?
Oh, definitely. And your reaction was what I would expect from someone who's seen this time and time and time and time again.
Right.
It's the reassurance that we're going to work on this, and you do have to put in the work. But when I go to work out, it's always an overproduction. So I didn't believe it was like, I'll do these 4 exercises and I'll strengthen my muscles. But I came down the stairs day for the first time without going one leg at a time. And if there's anybody out there listening that has knee pain, and even if you've had surgery, I highly recommend you have a simple fix that if you've ever limped or you've ever not moved because you hurt, you do get weak over time, and your muscles are just crying out to strengthen them. So now that Dr. Yass has explained this, and it is making sense, I feel like the sky's the limit.
And Kelly, these exercises aren't like overbearing for you, right? They're
No.
simple exercises, right?
No, they're resistant band exercise. I've never done that. I've always gone hardcore with something, but it's very specific exercises prescribed to me by Dr. Yass for my specific problem. And it is amazing. That's all I can say, really. It's just amazing.
I just wanted to say something here after listening to her story as well. You know, when I first saw you online or heard you on the radio, of course, everybody's first thought is, well, how much is this going to cost me? You know, well, after seeing you, it doesn't matter how much it's going to cost you. It's like, how much is it going to cost you if you don't come see you?
Yes.
Because
Right.
you may have to go, like when I came to you, I paid $200 for a visit, and you charged $200 for a visit. Okay? I thought, well, that's kind of high. But afterwards, I got to thinking, and it's like, I've been to all these doctors, had all these procedures done. You know, I'm paying for MRIs, copay for this, copay for that. Why? I've been doing it for over 20 stinking years now, and nothing has changed.
And they're just filling you full of pills and shots.
Right, exactly. And that's the biggest thing. All the doctors want to do is, here, take this pill. You know, they don't care about getting you better. All they care about is big pharma getting their cut, this, that, and the other. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I want people to understand that when Kelly said she's been there, she's had 5 or 6 times she's had the treatment. She hasn't had 5 or 6 times with me. She's only been to me twice.
Right.
She's doing the exercises on her own
Right.
3 times a week. And the way she's doing that is I gave her videos so that she could understand how to do them on her own. And those videos incorporate the cues that I use when you're in the office. So it allows you to make sure that you can do this and resolve it on your own. And that's an important point to make.
All right, we got to go to a break real quick. We'll come back on the other side and get deeper into this. It's the Pain-Free Living Hour with Dr. Mitchell Yass on 1010XL. All right, we're back on the Pain-Free Living Hour with Dr. Mitchell Yass. Again, if you want to set an appointment with Dr. Yass, it's 904-906-YASS. That's 904-906-YASS. Or you can schedule online, Live Without Pains, plural, livewithoutpains.com. All right, Doc, before we go get into dysfunction, joint dysfunction, destruction, I want to circle back to Steve real quick because I think Steve's made a great point off air that I want everybody to hear.
Okay. Yeah, I was talking to y'all during the break, and basically what I was saying is, if you are not willing to do the work that Dr. Yass instructs you to do with the videos and everything, then don't waste his time and don't waste your time and don't even bother to make an appointment. You have to make the decision that you are going to do what the work of doing the exercises that he provides for you. If you're willing to do that, then I highly recommend that you make an appointment. But if you're not willing to do the work, don't even bother.
And again, it's not stressful
No,
work. It's
it's
resistance bands, simple exercises, right?
It's the easiest. I mean, it's so simple, stupid, easy, it's ridiculous. There's no reason why anybody would not be able to do the exercises
from
that
9
you
to
provide
90.
them.
Yep, from 9 to 90. Does
And the
not
results
matter.
come in weeks. Let's make sure we understand weeks, not months or years. No one's looking for you to last months or years. It's weeks. It's almost instantaneous once you start.
All right, let's circle back into joint dysfunction
All right,
destruction.
So we're going to get into SI joint dysfunction destruction.
And you tell me over and over and over again, my friend, you don't believe we're on the G
I love the music you choose for this stuff.
I
Anyway,
try
go
to
ahead.
make it quite appropriate. So that's, by the way, 65 that goes back to.
That was good.
Eve of Destruction, heavy counter culture type of feel, and that's what this is all about. I want people to understand that the diagnosis SI joint dysfunction is basically meaningless. It doesn't mean anything. So I'm going to give you facts now. I want you to understand what your SI joint is and how it works. So number one, the SI joint or sacroiliac joint connects the spine to the pelvis. So the spine part is going to be your spine, your rib cage, your shoulder blades, your arms, and your head. That gets transferred down to your legs through the SI joint. So it transfers weight from the upper body to the lower body. The SI joint has very, very little range of motion and is heavily, heavily dense with ligaments because of the fact that you have this transference of weight going through that point. Just like all other joints, if someone wants to say there's dysfunction of a joint, you got to look at range of motion. And the SI joint actually is designed to allow for the completion of range of motion at the hip joint. They work together. So if you want to check, if you have pain on your right side and someone's telling you have SI joint dysfunction, sit down, take your left knee, pull it to your chest, and then put your leg down. Then take your right knee and pull it to your chest. If the range of motions are the same, your SI joint is fine.
Say that again.
Okay. As I said, the SI joint helps the extending of the range of motion of the hip joint. So to check it, if it's functioning properly, you check hip range of motion. Sit down, take your left knee with your hands and bring it into your chest and put it back down. Then take your right knee and bring it up to your chest. If the range of motions are the same, Steve's doing it right now, you would know that your range of motion of your SI joint is fine, and therefore there can't be dysfunction. Because the only concept of dysfunction relating to joints is loss of range of motion. Okay. The most common reason people are given that diagnosis is that arthritis is found on an X-ray or MRI. I don't care if arthritis is found anywhere in your body. It does not represent a diagnosis. I can show you as many people with no pain having the same level, if not greater arthritis. Arthritis doesn't cause pain. That's a big one for people to try to accept, but I'm telling you, it's the facts. In my experience, what I found is that the cause of pain in the SI joint region is actually a muscle called the piriformis muscle. The piriformis muscle actually attaches to the sacral spine and passes the SI joint. So in that area, there's a higher probability that the cause of the pain is from the piriformis and not the joint itself. And this goes back to what we always talk about. The gluteus medius has to strain first, and that causes the piriformis to compensate. The way we would know that it's probably that, we're going to do a single leg stand test. We're going to see how easy you can stand on your unaffected leg. And if there's a harder time on the opposite side, that's going to tell us that the glute medius weak, which is reaffirming that the cause of the pain is from the piriformis and not the joint.
It's that glute med, that
The
darn
magical
glute med.
glute med, man. That's the primary
Everything.
cause for pain in that gluteal region. Okay? And one last point is that pain in the gluteal region has nothing to do with lumbar herniations. The lumbar region is the space between the bottom of the rib cage and the top of the pelvis. The gluteal region begins from below the top of the pelvis. So if your pain, which is that SI joint region, is in the gluteal region, it cannot come from herniated discs, stenosis, or any other structural abnormality in the lumbar region.
Stop and say that one more time because this is very critical. This is very critical.
So people oftentimes have pain in the gluteal region, and there is a lack of understanding of what differentiates the lumbar region from the gluteal region. And I want you to understand your body, and I'm telling you that the lumbar region begins at the bottom of the rib cage and ends at the top of the pelvic rim, which is where you usually put your hands on your sides. And
So essentially the middle of the back to your waist.
correct.
Okay.
Correct. The gluteal region begins below
Your waist.
the pelvic rim or the waist.
Right.
So what I always tell people is put your hands on your waist and run a line across your thumbs from thumb to thumb. That differentiates if your pain's above it, that's the lumbar region. If the pain is below, that's the gluteal region. If your pain is in the gluteal region,
you do not have a
it
back
cannot
problem.
come from any structural abnormality in the lumbar region. I don't care if an MRI found that. It is an independent variable. 1994, the first study showed of the people who don't have lower back pain, 70% were found to have herniations or bulging discs. Of the people who don't have pain in the hip region, 75% are found to have arthritis or labral tears in the hip region. So, can we please start looking at the Yass method's methodology of walking away, or certainly not focusing on diagnostic testing as the primary way of looking at things, and focus on symptom presentation, because symptoms are real-time coming from the tissue in distress.
All right, let me do quick Cliff's notes for everybody out there. If your pain is in your butt and the doctor tells you it's your back, he's not right. It's in your butt.
Piriformis.
It's the glute med. It's the piriformis. It has nothing to do with this.
Especially if your pain is directly associated with weight bearing. If you tell me your pain comes on by doing any type of weight bearing activity and then is limited by rest, trust me, it's muscular.
And it's very easy to fix. Simple exercises. All right, we need to go to break. It's the Pain-Free Living Hour with Dr. Mitchell Yass on 1010XL. All right, we're back in the Pain-Free Living Hour with Dr. Mitchell Yass. I want to make a quick point, Dr. Yass, if you don't mind. Football season is here. We have one more show after this. One more show. Stop letting doctors telling you things that you think in your gut is not real. If you think it's not real, go get another opinion. It's all up to you. It's up to you. Doc, take it away.
Yeah, my point is that everyone should be an advocate for themselves in all regards of life. Just because someone tells you something doesn't mean you simply have to accept it, and especially after you've had a period of time where you've given this person the opportunity to correct your problem, and it's failed, and maybe you're in more pain. At some point, you have to take the responsibility, and I think Steve's point was about as critical as it can be. I am simply providing an alternative. This is a different way of looking at pain. It has a different language. You have the right to make that determination. I'm not trying to convince an orthopedist, a podiatrist. I'm not trying to convince anyone to believe in this because they're trained and educated a certain way. I'm just saying to the individual, you have an opportunity to hear a completely new way of thinking. It's based on 30 years of practice, thousands of cases, theoretically, clinically, and scientifically proven. So here's your chance to listen. And if it makes sense to you, then think about using it. As Steve said, it's if in 98% of cases the cause of pain is muscular, then you're going to have to do some sort of strength training to resolve that deficit. If you're committed to that understanding, then please, by all means, go ahead and let's get you in and let's show you what's going on and let's help you become pain-free and fully functional.
It's very simple. It's a very simple process. 904-906-YASS or livewithoutpains.com. You call Dr. Yass. You set up an appointment for his office on Phillips Highway or a Zoom call. You go in there. He gives you the tools to make you better.
Take control of your own life.
Take control of your own life. All right. We'll see you next week here on 1010XL, the Pain-Free Living Hour with Dr. Mitchell Yass.